Hi everyone, very good morning. How are you doing, guys?
All good, Ajay.
All good. So, before starting today's sessions, have you tried to install Med Server? Have you tried looked into the discovery schedules? Have you any questions, any challenges on it?
Ajay, I couldn't try it because of my work. I'll try this weekend and come to you with the questions.
Yeah, sure. Sandeep, Ashish, do you have any questions in that topics which we covered last week?
No, Jay, as of now.
Okay, sure. Thank you, guys. So I think let's get started then, right? So yesterday we covered about discovery schedules, and we covered about phases of the discovery, right? So as you remember, we mentioned we are going to be covered the discover mid-server clusters, behavior discovery, and the ServiceNow community today. So let me quickly share my screen and let's get started. Let me know once you are able to see my screen. Yep. So basically, to start the mid-server clustering, first of all, we need to know what is clustering and why we are doing, right? So clustering in the sense, if I say in the layman term, clustering is something where we are adding more than one, component to support that particular functionality, right? So if my one component is down due to any XYZ reasons, that my another component can pick up and work on those particular things. If you remember, while we are doing discovery of Windows Server as well, clustering also sometimes there, right? Or the failover conditions are there. So that's why the data centers and the DR things comes in the picture as well, right? So if my any application running on the data centers, and if any issue arise with the data particular data centers, I am able to automate, or I'm able to transfer my applications directly to the DR without any issues, right? So just to for continuous improvement, or we can say continuous support that particular functionality, we are using clustering, or we can say we are using that clustering functions to be load balance, or to to config to load balance, or to basically failover conditions, right? So how we can do in service now related to mid server clustering? Let me go here. So what you have to type, you have to type cluster, right? So under the mid server, you can see the clusters. Let me showcase you. Yeah. So under the mid server there is clusters, right? So once you open it, as of now there is one cluster ABC is configured, right? Let me configure the new cluster. So let's take an example. We are going to be configure that particular cluster for discovery, right? So I'm just mentioning the name of discovery. There are two types, failover and the load balance, right? Failover is something when we are configuring that more than one mid servers in this cluster mid server cluster functionality to you know uh, in that situation only, if my one first mid server is down, automatically the jobs or the functionality will pick up by my second mid server without any issue, right? So in that case, one only a single time one mid server will act, both mid server will be active, but only one mid server is responding to that particular transactions, or processes which is happening related to discovery, right? So one mid server is in active mode, but it's not used, or it's not using by the discovery that particular time. So as I mentioned, I've just created discovery failover. Now I have to be include the mid server. So let's take an example. I'm just adding two mid servers which we created. I just added here. Let me save this. So here I need to be put the order, right? Which mid server is that top order and will pick up by the discovery automatically. So example, I'm putting this is 100. Let me put 10, or it's 100, right? Okay, so now my first disco mid server PDI is on order 10. So every time when I run any discovery schedule or I'm using that particular discovery failover, the jobs will be picked by this mid server only, right? But if the status of that mid server is down and we are running the discovery using that particular cluster, then if it is down, then the jobs or discovery things will be picked up by the mid server PDI, the second mid server, right? So if I just quickly go to here, let me quickly go to here, discovery schedule. Let me go here. Let me create a new discovery schedule right away. Okay, the name I'm just putting mid server cluster functionality function for as of now. Configuration items again, mid server cluster, right? So when we are doing we are selecting mid servers, we have clusters available. So I can select the discovery cluster here. Location, I can select anything whatever I want to be select. Let me select America. Max run time, I'm selecting for 1 day. It's on demand again. Hours, I just want not to be select size and batch size, I'm putting this. SNMP versions, I'm select all. Right, so once that is done, let me mix over this again. As we remember, now we have to be at the IP ranges, right? So we have to click on the quick ranges. Then let me put the IP ranges /24 10.0.2.1 10.0.3.2. Okay, I'm just putting these three IPs, right? So once that is set up, everything is set up now, and once I run the discovery on it, I can use this quick ranges directly. So sorry, I can use discover now. So when I running discovery, right? So let me run the discovery and see. That is completed, but somehow you can see here in the agent, because I selected the order less, it will pick up by the disco mid server PDI, right? So this is the functionality of the mid server clustering. When we are putting any cluster and order is less, automatically that mid server pick up for as a primary mid server, we can say, to run the discovery. And if it is down, then it will pick up the discovery will pick up by the second mid server, which is in cluster, right? And we can add multiple clusters, multiple mid servers as well. It's not like that we have to be at two only. We can add two more than two mid servers are in this particular clustering functions, right? As well as sorry, as well as you remember, like as I'm already mentioning, when we are working on production instance for the discovery, when we are scheduling discovery on production instance, we have to be make sure more than one mid server is there to run the discovery schedules, and that should be in cluster, right? Because every time we are not going to be checked that particular mid server cluster functionalities, right? So we have to be make sure the discovery will run smooth, and we can check that functionalities from there, right? Now let me go to okay, that is I covered the failover one. Let me create one more mid server for the load balance discovery load balancer. Once I submit this one again in load balancer one, what anyone knows what is the mean of load balance?
Yeah, to manage the network traffic, we use the load balancer, if I'm not
And
wrong.
how it will work?
I mean, depending on yeah, I'm not sure really, but I don't remember actually. But yeah, that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's mainly to manage the traffic of your sites. If I'm
right. So right, so load balancing is something where we are going to be manage the load of that particular, or as Rakesh mentioned, for the network traffic, right? How it is working. So now again we have two mid servers. The functionality for the clustering, we are using load balance. So basically it balancing the loads, right? So let's take an example. We have again a discovery schedule. We selected that particular cluster. So the first IP, let's take an example. First transactions will triggered by mid server PDI. Then second transaction will triggered by Disco mid server PDI, right? So based on the order again, right? If my order is high for this one, so that will start the first transaction. Then second transactions comes to mid server PDI. Then third transactions goes to mid server PDI, Disco mid server PDI, and fourth transaction again comes to mid server PDI, right? So basically it will manage the load if we are discovering lots of IPs using the discovery schedule. And if I say again, as I mentioned here, load balancer failover, the same way the load balancers also comes in the picture in the network side as well, right? So what is the functionalities of load balancers? They have a couple of other load balancers functionalities, like as I mentioned, this one is load balancing round robin, right? So round robin is something where that attached virtual machines in that particular load balancer, that can be a hardware load balancer at network side, or that can be a virtual load balancer under the network, right? So round robin is again the same functionality which we are discussed here now, like first transactions or first network traffic will pick by that first virtual machine. In the second transaction or second network traffic will pick by the second virtual machine, right? So that's why we configure the load balancer at the network side as well. And again, network have the failover conditions, like as we discussed in the cluster side, right? So we can also configure in the failover, right? There is one more I'm just forgetting right now. There are three functionalities under the network load balancer: failover, round robin, and something else. I'm just not I'm not cat remembering that particular functionality, but I think you can look into it, right? So that is something we just know the basics of that, how load balancers or how network load balancers functionalities will work, right? And while we are discovering, we have to be while we are discovering network load balancer or any device, we have to be take care it's it's capturing the all information or not. So let me just quickly showcase you if we have some data available. Load balancers, yeah, we have load balancers. No, do we have any data? No. Okay, let me open and showcase you, might be something is there.
Ajay, both
Mhm.
the mid server in sync. Where can we check?
Which sync? I'm not getting it.
Means both the mid server is sync. Where can we check?
No, so that is in sync, right? So if we have to check, we have to be referred that particular clustering only, right? So we can see that are in the sync automatically. Once jobs are running, we can see those particular things. I think there is one life cycle event as well. I think here also we can see the informations about it, right? What is the source, what is the domain, and on which we are triggering that one.
Okay.
I don't have any example right away, but I will capture something and will showcase you related to load balancers. So first of all, when we are running discovery, one primary load balancer will discovered, and under that we can see the relationships of the virtual machines or that component which is part of that particular load balancer, the same way which we have configured as of now in for the clustering function. So any questions in that one, how we have to be configure the clusters to make sure our services or our discovery or any other things will not be impacted. And it's not related to discovery only, guys. We can also configure clustering things for service mapping as well. We can configure clustering for event management as well, or orchestration or some other functionalities, right? But we have to be make sure we have individual mid servers available for each services or each modules, right? So if we are using event management, should that definitely the two different mid server we required for event management purpose. The same way service mapping, we have required two different mid server for service mapping. Sometimes service mapping and discovery mid server can be same because the functionality of that those modules looks like same, but try to get, because service mapping is going to be do extra discovery or trying to find out our application dependency mapping as well. So little bit load on high, and if we know, like our service mapping count is very high, very much high, where we are creating service mapping or service maps or application services, and we have to be discover daily basis. So it's for safer side, I'm just suggesting we should take a different mid server for that particular functionality as well. So any questions in that one related to mid server clusters?
Ajay, if we have to create a mid server cluster, so
Mm-hmm.
same capabilities for both mid server, no?
I'm not getting it. Same capabilities of the both mid server means?
means means mid server A, mid server B for capabilities and
Right. So capabilities and applications should be the same. It's not like that. Ki one mid server is belongs to discovery and second mid server is belongs to event management. Then definitely it will not work. Right. So we have to be make sure that one mid server capabilities are looks like same. So I think
and
correct me if I'm wrong. You're discussing about that applications which I mentioned here, or the
yes,
capabilities, right? The
yes,
same
yes.
way that different mid server is this and the capabilities is. So make sure that supported application and capabilities of the both mid servers looks like same. If one mid server is you are running for event management purpose only, supported application is event management, and the second mid server is support application is discovery, and you are putting in the cluster, that will not work. You have to be make sure that particular functionality as well.
Okay, Jay. And we can operate the mid server for business rule.
We can operate the mid server for business role. Again, how you want to be operate the mid server from business rule? What is the
Means
use case here?
means how means if my mid server A is down, then mid server B how to work? मतलब उसको
Automatically, if in the cluster, that will automatically pick up the traffic. We no need to be required to do any business rules here. But if you want to be see any notifications or something, then we can write business rules, and we can trigger the notifications to stakeholders. Okay, my mid server A is down, and that is the information that particular time it is down, and now it's showing down and all, right? So whatever the information we want to be passed, we can write a business rule and we can trigger the notification on it based on that,
Okay.
based on the status basically.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. And Rakesh, any questions from your side on it?
Not really at the moment.
Okay.
Okay.
So next thing is, now we discussed about that. Next thing is behavior, right? So discovery behavior, which we called discovery behavior. If I layman term, if I say behaviors are specific instructions for discovery schedules to follow, right? And discovery behavior identify that which mid server should launch which type of prop. Basically, specifically, if I mention here, the single example, if I give you, you have 10,000 devices, and in 10,000 devices you have couple of devices belongs to Windows or Linux, or like 9,000 devices belongs to Windows and 1,000 devices belongs to Linux network and other type of OS flavors, right? So in that case, we don't want to give more time to be run discovery schedules, because when it's running on each type of devices, it's running the Sesam probe, it's going for the classification, it's triggering each and every informations, right? To restrict that or overcome that particular time, the behaviors comes in the picture, where we can create behaviors specific to trigger that particular type of props and that particular type of patterns only. Right, so let me give an example. Let me create a discovery behavior for Windows example. Let me submit this one. Now I've created. Now we need to be at the discovery functionality. From here I can add it. So on which phase we want to trigger, like we want to be trigger on the first phase, because from the first phase we just want to see that it will check and it will trigger that particular functionality for that, right? Functionality definition, right? So functionality definitions out of the box available here. So what does that mean? Let me open this particular table directly. This is functionality definition, right? So all means that all port type will be triggered, like WMI, SNMP, SSH, HTTP, WMINS, DNS, printer and all, right? So it will trigger the all ports props, right? But if you want to discover only Windows server, right? So WMI will be triggered here, right? So WMI is something where you want to discover Windows only, right? Or you can see that this one Windows only, WMI WinRM and WinRM SSL will be triggered, right? Now, your customer come and ask you, we have only Linux flavor devices, and I just want to discover the Linux flavor devices of from that particular IP ranges, right? In that case, again, you can create a behavior, and it will give you that Linux flavor devices only, and that will be Unix only SSH. You can use that one, right? So it just key what discovery functionality you are selecting and which mid server is going to be triggered that particular functionality. If you want to create new, you can also create a new discovery functionality. Which port probe you want to select, you can select it from here. Basically, let's take an example. After a couple of days, you have to be very specific to run only printers, right? So you can create a new discovery definitions for that, or functionality definitions, and you can submit this one, right? So that particular discovery functionality will trigger for printers, right? So here it's printer only already, but I just created one. This is printer, right? So that is also there. If a new port probe you want to add, new discovery definitions or functionality definitions you want to add, you can also able to add that one to specific discover to specific flavor type of devices using that, right? So I'm just selecting here, as I mentioned, I'm running for the Windows only. So I'm selecting Windows mid server, which mid server it will be triggered that particular definitions, right? Because end of the day in the discovery schedule we are going to be select the behavior, we are not selecting the mid server there, right? So mid server is attached to that particular behavior, and based on that it will trigger, right? So let me select the dispo mid server, right? Let me log this and match criteria. If you want to put any, or if you want to put all, but whatever the match criteria we are want to put, we can put it, right? So let me submit this, and let me come back here. Yeah. So now what will happen if I select this particular discovery behavior for those particular IPs ranges? If in that IP ranges different type of flavor device is there, but customer wants to discover only Windows type of devices, you can use that particular discovery behavior. And in discovery schedule, if I go to the discovery schedule, let me go there. Yeah, again let me open this one, this existing discovery schedule, right? So when we are selecting clusters, we can select the behaviors, and here I can select the Windows behavior. So what will happen in that case, if behavior we have selected Windows and we already attached a mid server to that particular behavior, whatever the IP ranges we have and different type of flavors devices are there, but it will trigger only Sesam probe for Windows Windows port props, and it will discover only Windows type of devices. Except apart from Windows, it will not going to be check anything. Means it will not trigger the port props definitions for Linux or network or other type of devices. It will trigger it for Windows only. If that particular port pass and classification done, it will discover those particular devices here. So this is for that particular functionality we can also use where we want to discover specific devices, or if we don't know the device type and we just want to get to know the device type informations, then we can also use the behavior where we have IP ranges. We can create the different three types of flavors like Linux or Windows or SNMP, and based on that we can get the informations if that particular port are enabled or that classification phase are matching or the credentials are matching, then it will discover it or it will give you error as well. That is that error, it's not a Windows type of device basically. So that is the functionality of it, right? Also you can see all except SNMP, right? So it will not discover the SNMP type of devices. We have added all, but except SNMP port props is not added here, right? Except Unix, we can also see the SSH is not added here, right? Windows, except Windows, we want to discover all, we can see all except Windows SNMP, we can see whatever we want to be, if customer is asking to be discover those type of devices except those things, right? So we can configure the new discovery or functionality definition as well based on the port props. Is that clear? Any questions in it? What is the use of behavior and why we are configuring this?
Yes, Ajay, I am good, Ajay.
Okay. So this is all about the discovery behaviors. Let me, showcase you one more thing, which is related to port props. Again, this is something related to the port props, right? So you can see this one based on those port props informations, discovery triggering the Sesam prop first, right? So let me open the WMI one. Right, so this is my WMI description of the it is Windows WMI. It's generic TCP, active CI IPs. It will check those. Triggered by service is EP map service will be triggered. Classification it will use if when we are triggering the Sesam prop or when we are running a discovery of any type of device, and if he found that particular port is open or WMI is found open, it will trigger that particular classification. See, from here that Windows classifications, discovery classify Windows. Based on that, it is going to be classification priority is number one, and also you can see that which trigger is prop. That particular prop is going to be triggered, that is Windows classify, right? So let me showcase you in the layman term. One moment, where is my discovery schedule? Okay, let me see. This is uh, uh, this is the first Sesam prop which we already discussed, right? But first phase is the Sesam, or we can say scanning, right? Here, this is the order of to trigger or check the ports, right? So the order for that is, let me go in the first. See, okay, the first is order is just to trigger the WMI. If WMI checked and not found any port, then SNMP will trigger, then SSH. So this is the order to check the all ports on that particular machine or device which we want to be discovered, right? If any port is not open, it will simply give you an error. If port is open, then it will not give you, right? So here, if I open this one, see, this is just the logs, right? So if you remember, we put it, the IP range is there, right? So one IP range is this 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.254, right? The next IP is 10.0.2.1. The next IP is 10.0.3.2, right? So these three IP ranges, or these three IPs are checked by this, and he not found any port on it, right? So if you see in these particular parameters which port is tried, you can see now it's little bit you have to be read. Port prob, let me open this one, WMI, Windows WMI port 135 will be checked here. Then SNMP, second thing, port 161 is checked here. Third is SSH, port 22 is checked here. Fourth is HTTP, port 80 is checked here. So all ports is checked, right? If any port is open here, or we found that particular port is open, we can see response as opened or resolved like that, right? But here no port is open, so that's why it's coming like that. So we tried all ports to check it on those particular IP ranges, and we have not found anything, right? So it will be triggering based on that particular port and props. I hope you are getting it, guys, what I'm trying to mention.
Yep.
Right. And as I mentioned, if we found that port 135 or port 22 open, based on that port prop classifications, we will trigger that particular prop which is related to classify. Right. So it's Windows classify. Port is which is attached to port prop WMI. Let me open one more just to showcase you SSH as well, or SNMP as well. So if we found port SSH open, port 22 open, then it will trigger the Unix classification discovery classify. There are two props will be triggered, interactive prop cell and Unix classification. The same way SNMP, if we have SNMP, then SNMP classification will be triggered. Up now, let's talk to what is the Windows classification, what is inside in it, right? Yeah, this is my WMI Pro Windows Classify, right? Now you can see name we have put it, classification class type we have put it, ECCQ WMI runner, ECCQ name is WMI Classify. That all informations when we are running a discovery on Windows CI, I will showcase you. But before that, I just want to give you information how the discovery will be triggering that information, right? Here you can see WMI fields 70, prop parameter output format sensor, which we have discussed, like how sensor is collecting the information and putting there, right? So WMI field, so in this particular classification prop, we are going to be triggered that particular WMI path to collect the information, right? So here we are just that will this is WMI commands basically which we use in our Windows machine. So it's triggering HKey local machine, it's going to that particular directory and trying to find out the domain, right? It's again going to be that particular directory and trying to find out the host name. It's going to that particular directory and try to find out the computer.system name, right? It's trying to find out the name, node name, cluster name. So all informations domain again from name. So there are different ways to put or capture the informations from classification phase that actual is a Windows server, and what is the name, host name, version, OS available on that particular machine. If I open the sim one, let me open this one. right? So nothing is there, but it's just a path. It will triggered by WMI classifier probe to collect that informations from there and populate in ServiceNow, right? So, and prop parameters, it's a parameters again, which is triggered as a JSON format. Where is my mouse? Okay, yeah. It just triggered based on the WMI classify only, and it will triggered as a JSON format, right? And then comes in the sensor. So these all three will be triggered while we are triggering the WMI prop. So that particular is this is that sensor basically. It's written in the code. So couple of informations mentioned, like find cluster name, WMI data, nodes, this, and it will collect that informations and populate into ServiceNow CMDB. I'm not going to be deep in this particular one as of now, but what is happened in the first Sesam phase, when we triggered discovery, Sesam phase will be triggered. It will check which port is open, right? Based on that particular ports, whatever the port is open on it, it will trigger the classification phase. That is triggered the classification prop, if I say in the simple words. And once it's classified, now classification happens based on two things. In the classification, it will also going to check the credentials first. If my credentials is passed or my credentials are matching, then only it will going to be triggered that particular WMI commands to fetch the informations from that particular server. Okay, so that how this is working. And if classification is successful, my credential is passed, and we are able to get the data, whatever the basic data we required, then identification section will be triggered. So I will tell you in the next classes how identification section will be triggered, how we can check that information and all, right? So is there any questions on it in the port prop side or the classification side? No. Okay. I just want to mention one more specific thing related
I
to
think
port.
I
Yeah,
think we have to do a lab on it only, then we can get the question.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely right. Definitely, you have to do some self practice on your instance PDI basically, right? And next thing is which I just want to mention related to port on prop. Now let me give you a scenario. You are running a discovery on Linux device, okay? And while you are testing you while you are testing the credentials, or while you are testing that information of the particular device, you are not able to discover. But the port 22 is open on that particular device. As you know, for the Linux discovery, SSH port 22 is required, and you have the credentials. Except 5 or 10 devices, you are able to discover the whole Linux machines. It can be 1000 or 10,000, right? So you have discovered all. What do you think? What can be the cause? You are means your port 22 is open, and that credentials is also working, right? So what other can be a cause to discovering that particular device? Any idea, anyone? Okay, so let me tell you basically. Sometimes what will happen, customer modify the existing port or default port to custom port due to some security reasons for some specific machines or some security machines, right? So as of now, when we are trying to take the access of the Linux machine or example Windows machine, we know that these are the specific port. Linux 22, Windows are port 135, right? To WMI, or if we want to take RDP, that is double 389. But sometimes customer modify that custom ports due to some security reasons, and you are trying to discover Windows or sorry Linux machine on port 22. You can see in the responses port 22 is open, right? You just validate the credentials, that is working, but still you are not able to discover that machine, and that is going to be fail on the classification phase only, right? So if customer modify that particular port, you have to be create a new port prob here as well. You have to be mention the name, you have to be mention the description, classification phase, triggered by service. So you have to be go here and you have to create that particular information here. Let me open this particular table to showcase you first of all. Okay, so if you are able to see, these 140 port details are available, right? If I search for port 22, see that is registered for SSH. Port 135 is EMAP, it's registered for WMI and DCOM, right? Or port 161, that is registered for SNMP. The same way, if you found customer modify the port to run or to access that particular machines to port 25 or anything, you have to be create new IP service here. Let me create a new IP service example. That name I'm putting SSH port. What is the service name? Again, that is service name is SSH. Port is 25. What is the port protocol? It's TCP UDP or TCP UDP, right? Create. But where it's going to be created? It's in Linux or Unix, right? So based on that, you have to be create that particular IP service. Now, if I search for, let me search for service name SSH. Now you can see the two ports are there, right? Sorry, one port is there. Let me do in this way. Okay, now you can see the two records are there. One is port 22 and one is port 25. Both are running on the TCP. I just mentioned this class for the Linux server directly, right? So you can customize that particular port or probe as well on the customer need to classify that particular device in the correct class. That is the use of the port probe customization as well. If customer is customized that particular information at their site. I hope it's clear now, little bit related to that, how you can customize the port using the port props, how you have to be create one record in the IP service. If customer customize the particular default port for couple of servers due to some security reasons, because we face that issue, we face that challenges while we are running, and we are not aware, because in the first place customer is not mentioning that one. But this is our responsibility only when we are doing any workshops with the customer and the requirement gathering sessions. We have to be asked specifically, is there any customizations you did on the port, you did on the policies side? So please let us know. Based on that, we have to be modify, or we have to be create some custom things at our side as well. If customer is sharing that information, that will good to us. Otherwise, while we are running discovery and we are failing, then might be in the troubleshooting sessions with the customer, or the customer infra team will help out to get that informations to us, right? So we discussed about clusters, we discussed about discovery behaviors, and we discussed about classification as well as port and props, right? So any questions in that, guys, till now from anyone? Is Rahul joined today? No, he's not joined yet. Any? Okay. So the last thing which asked by Rakesh, ServiceNow community. So Rakesh, this is ServiceNow community basically, right? You can configure or you can enroll with your company email ID if your company is a partner of ServiceNow, or if not, you can also enroll or configure with your personal email ID as well. So I'm using my official email ID here as well. So now you can see this is all about my profile. So I have configured in that way. I have all certifications, whatever I have here that is featuring here, informations related to me. And apart from that, that blue stars is just denoting I am a rising star of this year, and which is that is particular, we can say, recognitions from ServiceNow, which is provided by them based on couple of active, or supporting, uh, basically we can say community users. So they as of now on ServiceNow community, more than 6 lakhs resource or pupils are active, who are actively working on the ServiceNow community. Or actively working, we can say there are two type of mostly things. One is who are coming on the ServiceNow community, just putting their questions or queries and leaving it. Second is who are helping out to resolve their issues and queries, right? So there are two type of resources, so I am one of them. Like, I'm using in the two both ways. If I face some issues while I'm working on any project, I am also putting some questions on different forums. Also, if I face any issue related to if I can help out, if anyone facing any issue related to ITOM or CMDB or ITAM, I'm definitely helping out to put my answers on that one, right? So until now I put it 715 posts, 56 solutions accepted, and 216 is helpful received. So solutions is something where you know uh, that they checked my response, and that particular response helped them to get the complete solution. Okay, and helpful received is something where they checked my post or my response, and somehow they able to get the idea that this I have to do and my issue will be resolved, right? So based on that, they are putting some helpfuls and solutions to us, right? Now how we can put it, like let me showcase you this one example. Here in the notification feed, I'm able to see a couple of informations related to that, my responses, or if anyone is responding based on my response, I can see that information here in the product hub, right? Let me go to that community back. In the products of, these are the products of the service now. So app development in App Engine Studio, Citizen Developer Center, asset management, all asset management modules like enterprise, hardware, software, cloud, then data foundation, CMDB, CSDM, then ITOM. So if I go here in the data foundation, CMDB, this is a forum basically where you can put your questions, right? So if I scroll it down, you can ask your question. If you want to ask, you can click on this particular questions and you can ask directly whatever you want to, right? And you can put the questions here. So if any questions comes here, let me give you an example, this one, right? So one of the user converting his, he mentioned converting date and time to millisecond in Excel. He wants to be a upload certificate. He wants to be a, upload certificates in bulk load, right? So he's not sure how I can convert date and time. I help them using that particular formulas you can create, and I also ask if it is able to provide some examples on which date and time he wants to be convert, right? Then he mentioned, Ajay, I have this one, I want to be convert. So I simply help out them ki, you can apply that particular formula where is equal to a2 hyphen date and this. So you can see that valid informations related to the date and time convert to the milliseconds, right? I've also described about all informations like this is a, what is the A1, what is this and all, right? So if he looks that particular response today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and if he feels that Ajay provide me a correct information and he helping out to resolve my issue, he will definitely put a helpful for that or accept solutions for that particular answer of mine. That is one thing. Second thing is let me go to data foundation. Okay, let me go to from here, right? And this is something where you are facing issues in the
Ajay,
questions. Yeah.
Ajay, could you show us where we can find the list of questions asked, complete list of questions as on today.
So
Yeah.
this is complete list of questions only.
Okay, this is complete list of questions. Okay.
All these all are the questions, and under that if you see, two responses are there, three responses are there, three responses are there, nine seven responses are there, right? So these
Right.
are the complete questions where different fogs coming. Like, let me open this one just to showcase you, right? So this is one of the questions which is asked by Sagir related to data certification and CI attestation, right? One response given by Nicholas, then second response given by Josiah, then there's so couple of responses are there, right? Now you have to be read and go through the all, and which is helpful for you, then
Oh,
you have to be give the helpful, like, here it's helpful given by two pupils to Tony Brenton, which is ServiceNow employee, and which is mentioned the difference between attention, CI attention, or the data certifications, right? So these are the questions only. This is the list of all questions. If you
hmm.
want to ask your question, you can put ask a question, and you can put the subject, you can put the board CMDB form, and or if you want to see all forms, you can see all, and you can put the body, right? So subject is something, let's take an example, issue with discovery behavior, right? Then you can describe your issue, what is the issue you have it, and you can post it. Once you post it, it will go to the CMDB form. In this form, let me go back on the CMDB form.
Okay, so it will not produce, before we create this question, like how we get the knowledge article results, right? So as
No,
soon as we type in the short description, will it
no,
not give any results as such? Is it? Okay.
no. As of now, not. But I will give you one more thing. So once you put it, that unreplied, it will showcase here. Like example, one question, this is put it 2 weeks ago, and no one is responded yet, because I think no one is aware about it, right?
Mhm.
Also, articles is there, right? So if you feel, before putting my question, I need to be search in the articles, right? So you can open that articles related to, like, Dynatrace Service Graph Connector article is there, as the SCCM Service Graph Connector, new data model in the CMDB API, Service Graph Connector. So whatever articles is, like, this is something I put it, good learning, start learning to the CMDB, where I have mentioned couple of useful links related to the CMDB, intelligence search, IHETL. So these are the articles. So if you feel, okay, you want to search for some specific things, like, let me ask for SCCM example, and I can search, right? So I can see SD SCCM Service Graph Connector, right? Integration Hub, ETL Hub, top features introduced in 2022. Whatever SCCM comes, I have also put it one link related to SCCM here. So where SCCM comes, it will showcase you all informations related to that
Okay.
under the articles. Again, a couple of times, if something not available in articles, you can also see the blogs as well, right? So blogs also available. So these are the blogs, right? Let me go to data foundation back, CMDB. Yeah, so blogs is also there, right? So you can open that one. I think I've already opened it, right? Yeah. Right, so blogs also, you can say it, if blog is something, if something new feature is coming up, and introducing by ServiceNow, where some pupils created that particular blog and information sharing that article on it, right? So that is all, right? Also, that is one thing I just want to mention. If you want to tag someone, like, you feel ki Ajay is helpful me for that particular questions, or anyone, any other resource will helping me out on that particular thing. So you can also tag that one at the rate. You can put the Atul Grover name. You can put my name. This is my, I'm on the, and this is a numbers of the top solutions accepted questions in last week, right? So Atul put it couple of responses and seven answers selected as a solutions, and the same way I put it couple of responses in the last week. I've four solutions accepted for my responses, right?
Mhm.
This is for CMDB. The same way we have ITOM, where discovery, service mapping, event management questions you can ask, right? So
Mhm.
you have that, only one thing I just want to mention here. You have to be very specific while you are putting your questions, and that should be in that particular form only. Might be if you are putting on the wrong form, that will not entertain, or
Okay.
because there are different folks who are expert in different modules, so they are
Right.
looking for that. So I'm looking for CMDB item and an item. I'm not going to be looked into it other modules, like I'm not going to be now platform or not going to be security operations, because I feel why I'm not aware about those particular things that much, right? So I'm not investing that my time there. I'm going to be only on ITOM or CMDB or ITOM, just to provide my solutions or responses to the stick or resources, right? So if you put it on the wrong form, that will not look by that particular expert.
Got it.
Right. So that is one thing which is all about ServiceNow community. I think there are a couple of other useful links, events you can see here. If you want to part of groups, SNAP groups and all, you can include that one. Rise up ServiceNow forum, something related to that. If you want to rise up in ServiceNow side, if you are new on the ServiceNow sites, you can also put some questions here as well. This is all about who are new in the ServiceNow site, right? So how to make field visible after submitting form. There are basic question asked by that startup resources who are starting their trainings, or they have started the career in the ServiceNow. So that is particularly those resources only. So
Got.
here you can see Atul again. Atul is on 196 on second topper. He's responding that too much on that particular form, right? So it depends how we are, or on which form we are a little bit active and we are responding to resources.
Mm.
I hope that is clear now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's my personal suggestions to everyone who are part of this call as of now. Start exploring the ServiceNow community as much as possible. Put your questions, or provide some responses based on your understanding to them, right? It's a very good platform to learn a lot of things related to modules whichever you are interested, right? And
Mm.
ServiceNow, it's also giving you some recognitions from their sides. As I mentioned, I'm rising star of this year, and I'm just preparing for MVP this year or next year into 2025. So every 1 year they have nominations, they have to be filled the nominations and all things, and based on that, ServiceNow is going to be select, you will be rising star or you will be MVP for this year, right? So that my target now, to be MVP, most valued professionals in the ServiceNow community side, and I'm just putting my hard things to them to get it, that particular badge.
Got it.
Right. So it's a good platform basically to learn and to grow, and you put your questions wherever we are facing issues.
Mm.
Okay, so I think I'm good for today. Any questions, anything from anyone before closing the call for today?
No, actually, we'll have to again, as I said, do the lab only, then we'll raise the
Right.
questions. Yeah.
So I just request you one thing only. Please uh, do some practice, self practice from your side on your PDI or using the now learning instance. And if you are doing self practice, you have couple of questions which you can ask, and definitely I'm trying to help out or provide you solutions or responses on that questions as much as possible from my side, right? But self practice is must needed to learn that particular things.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Right. So sure, I think then if we are good, then we'll connect on the Monday at the same time, and we'll start the next things, whatever is pending as of now related to that.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Have a good day. Bye bye. Happy weekend.